All right, so now we've completed our OLE database source for the molding machines, and we double checked which columns we needed. We only needed the asset type and raw materials. So let's get into our aggregate function. And what we're actually going to do is we want to look at these two columns, and we only want to aggregate the asset type and the raw material to the core. We don't want any duplicates. This is what we want to really express here. In order to remove some duplicates, you can simply do an aggregate function that will group these particular values. So the first thing that we want to aggregate, I'm just going to put raw material, and you notice that the moment that I click down raw material, all of the other pieces come together. So that ends up being available, and the next thing is the asset type, and really that's all that we need to do here. Now I'm noticing one small error with this, and that is that currently we're seeing asset type here, and it really should be asset class. So where we need to fix that is going to be in the molding machine function. So I'm going to go back up to molding machines. I'm going to go up to the editor, and since I know that that the other value should have been an asset class, I can tell that I've made an error here. So here's how I make that change. I simply click on asset class and unclick asset type. Now I know that I have my two items correctly done. Okay. So the value about being able to see these kinds of errors being made is the ability to correct those. So it's a very quick and easy way to go about that. All right, now when that change occurs, we notice that there's a red X here inside our data flow. And that's because in the aggregate function, we didn't define things correctly. So the asset type, which was there before, is now missing. That's okay, because we're just going to come down, check on it, and then bring it to asset class and hit OK. And notice that red X goes away. Now, one of the questions you might have is, how did I know that that should have been an asset class value instead of the asset type? Well, one way of being able to determine that is come back to the molding machines, and let's kind of do a preview of what our data looks like. So if you really take a good close look at this, our asset class is giving us an idea about the type of machine that we're dealing with, right? The asset, or I should say the asset class, is not the type, but the type of materials that the machine works with. However, the asset type is a molding machine, and we already know that we want molding machines because we specified that in our SQL statement. So actually the machine type that we're looking for is going to be based on the materials that it uses, and that's how we know that the asset class is really what we're after. Now, how would you know that in real life if this was a real life scenario? Well, basically you would have people that would be familiar with the data and the process, and they would be the ones advising you, key decision makers and whatnot. All right, let's go to the PTI data warehouse. Let's pick our data warehouse destination. We're going to go ahead and load this into machine type. And but with before, we're going to look at our mappings and take a look at these, right? So we have asset class going into machine type. That's what we wanted. And we have raw material going into material. Now, if these aren't there for you, you will have to come down and select it. Like, for example, if it says ignore, come down and select asset class. And you can easily see how things are connected up above. So that's what we want. We're going to hit OK. Notice the red X goes away. By the way, if you want to make this look pretty, you can always go to Format, Diagram, and do an auto layout. And that will kind of fix that for you. I'm going to save everything up until now. All right. So the next thing that we need to do is, now that we've got our plant and our machine type, we actually need to now do a new data flow task, and that is going to end up becoming our machine. So let's go ahead and set that up. So I'm going to actually move this right here. I will call that load machine. There we go. And I will connect this to that properly. And let's go ahead and set up the load machine. Now, load machine is a lot similar to the machine type because we're actually going to use the same SQL statement when we put the data together, except we're going to grab different fields because this is the way that we design the data or the data warehouse. So here, let's go ahead and do a source is going to be another OLEDB source, and a destination. We're not going to do anything fancy this time. We're just going to do another OLEDB destination. The destination, as always, is going to be our data warehouse. And this time, our source, we're going to just call that machines. All right. And I will connect these two. So in the machines, what we actually want to do here is we're going to go ahead and do another SQL command. All right. And that SQL command is exactly the same as before. So we're going to copy and paste in where the molding machines are. And let's go ahead and preview that one more time. Right. But notice there's a lot more information here than before. Right. So we have things like data purchase, who manufactured it, where it's located, and whatnot, right? So some of the things, that we want to include in the machine information is going to be here as well, right? And that's just a decision that was made on design. Now, you might, as a data warehouse designer, you might not decide to create the data warehouse in this fashion. So let's look at all of the columns that we're looking at here. And really, we want to go back to our data warehouse and look at what columns that we need. So here's our data warehouse, and we specifically need the machine number, machine name, the type, plant number, manufacturer, and data purchase. Okay, so those are 6 specific fields that we need to include. So let's come back here. So probably the easiest thing is to deselect everything and select the ones that we need. Remember, there were 6 of them. I'm not too sure if I'm going to have them all in order. We'll say code, the class, the name, location, manufacturer, and data purchase. Those are the only 6 that we need. The rest of it we can really leave out. Okay, so I'll hit OK. And then let's go to the data warehouse and make sure we select on the data warehouse. And this is going to go into our machine table. And let's go look at the mappings. Oh, we have some issues here that we need to fix. So the first thing we notice is that some of these things line up perfectly, right? And like with all cases, we had changed the field name, all right, and it's different than what the input column is, and this happens a lot. Machine name, type, plant number, and so on. So what we really need to do is make the adjustments. So the machine number is actually going to be the asset code. The machine name is going to come from the asset name. The asset class, like before, is the machine type, and then the location is the plant number. So make sure that we adjust those mappings appropriately. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and format auto layout here just to kind of get it cleaned up a little bit. Go back to my control flow, and I'm going to save this. Now this would be a good time to run the project because we want to make sure that everything is working well. So I'm going to go ahead and build it and make a run and just make sure I know that everything is happening as it should happen. So one way to ensure that is to go ahead and execute it and hope everything turns into a green checkbox. All right, so everything is working well. I'm going to come back to my SQL, and remember we had this query before. I'm going to comment out the delete statements, and I'm just going to run the select statements, And I can see that now I have data in those specific tables. I do not have data in my fact manufacturing table, right? And we can see that right here. And then also I do not have data in my batch table, and we can see that right here. We're going to do the batch table shortly after this. All right, so after running that, I'm going to go ahead and uncomment my delete fields, and I am going to execute that one more time just to know that my data is empty. And in the next video, I'll get started on running the batch.